Hello and welcome to the Think Sports podcast. Today our guest is Sukrit Saha. He did a Bachelor in Pol Science in St. Xavier's University and recently graduated from ISWBM with a Master's in Sports Management. So the first question that comes to our mind, what was your line of thinking in making this transition from Pol Science to Sports Management? Was this your original plan when you graduated from St. Xavier's? And later on we'll get to how you are at this present juncture in your life, how you're thinking, how the current job market is in sports. But let's go back to the beginning, like what went into the thinking?
Hi, good evening, guys. I'm Sukrit. Thank you for welcoming me into Think Sports. So, I switched from Pol Science to a sports management degree. It wasn't as such as a plan, or I didn't think it through. My parents wanted me to do a management degree, a business, not business management, but a management degree, so that you can get into, say, some kind of a job. I had a frank conversation with my parents. I was going to appear for my CAT. I appeared for my other competitive exams, but sports management was not on the plan, but I was just goofing around on the net and it just came out. And I went up to my parents and was like, wow, this is a management degree and it specializes in sports. And since I've always been involved in sports since a very young age, I thought that, wow, this is the best of both worlds and includes both and will help me specialize in something I really like, and I'll be doing something I enjoy. And that's the end of at the end of the day, that's what you aspire to do. And so I did more research into this college called ISWBM, which is based out of Calcutta again, which was a big positive. It has a great alumnus. People have really done well for themselves after completing the management program. I spoke to my brother. He said that I have few friends who have graduated the college in the same course and are doing really well. So why don't you do that? And we'll take it from there. So that's how I won't say entered, but that's how my mindset became that wow, I have to do this. And I went to sports management and I appeared for an exam. I cleared the interview, and that's how I completed the management program.
Okay, so you were talking about how you selected ISWBM because you spoke to your brother, then you did some research on ISWBM and some other colleges as well, potentially the courses that they were offering, right? So did you think about other colleges in India or potentially looking abroad also maybe, and why you decided to select ISWBM in particular?
To be honest, abroad was not really, it was a very far-fetched idea. I wasn't thinking that far. Other colleges in India, they were relatively very new compared to ISWBM, who has been serving this program since I think it's been good over 12, 13 years. The other colleges recently started, and the alumni of that college, I haven't really heard of them doing really, really well for themselves. So since I knew that ISWBM alumnus are already doing well for themselves and they are in proper positions of power in the sports industry, I could be like, yeah, I have graduated from the same college as you, and I could reach out to them and move things forward. That was my thinking. I looked into few other sports management programs, which were, I think, IISM in Mumbai. It didn't really stand out for me per se. So that was the decision, and that's how I came to the decision.
Yeah, this is interesting. Also, whilst talking about this selection making process and how you go about it, I'm fascinated to know how much of the fact that this was also at home, close to home, right? And how much of the fact that it's your city, living conditions, not wanting to go to a new place. Did that come into your thought process at all once making a decision?
Of course, it plays a very important role. You can be with your parents. They're getting old. That's not a very good excuse, but it did come into play because I knew that if I stay in Kolkata and do this course, I'll be having a distinct advantage on other people because it is at home and I could focus on the other activities, other small events you could manage and build up your CV because you already know the people and people are always looking for people to help them out. So it didn't come into my mind at that point, but I'm glad that I did it here than any other city where you had to go in, adjust, make new people, meet new people, uh, increase your social circle, and then go about it. But yeah, it 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 was a massive edge that I got from other people because I saw other people come in and do the same thing, and it was difficult for them to adjust, and some of them left the course also. So that's something I faced.
I think this is really interesting, especially you talk about how you had time to devote to other projects apart from your course. We'll get to this later on. We would like to know what all other projects you were involved in because it'll be interesting for us to learn as well, how you can build your profile, how you can do other things to enhance your chances in the job market in the future. Also, I would like to highlight something you mentioned before. It was really interesting because what you said was in the research, what you looked at was the alumni and where they are placed, how you thought that, okay, after graduating, what have people done in the past? I think this is something which is a very important consideration that people need to think about when they choose. They don't just go by ranking. They don't just go by geographical location. Of course, those are important, things that you look at. But this is also something which is more tangible, more credible. Be like, okay, fine. I know that this many people have graduated and they're doing really well for themselves. So that is something that was really interesting to me. I think everyone should consider this when they're doing their research for their universities. Before we jump to the point you made about other ventures, other projects that you were involved in, I would like to know a bit more about the course in ISWBM. Like what areas did they cover? What areas did they concentrate on? And more importantly, what was most interesting to you about this course?
Okay, so sports management is obviously a very hands-on ground kind of a degree. So you have to have practical knowledge.
Of course.
You need to do as much projects, as much work you can, get as much internships, build your CV as flawless as you can. So by doing that, it just gives you an edge over so many other people. One of the best things I did while I was in college was get my coaching license from AIFF in football. Other events would include small events here and there. Was probably which would stand out was a mixed football under 18 tournament where there were girls and boys participating together and playing a tournament. So a lot of NGOs came. They put up teams. We gave them jerseys. I was lucky enough to be part of that, organize that, be part of a team that organized that. It was for 4 days, duration of 4 days, and everybody enjoyed that tournament. So this is one thing I really hold close to my heart because I've never seen a tournament like this, never heard of a tournament like this, but especially in Kolkata, and it was really great being part of that. Another thing you asked me was what subjects or areas did they cover? It was divided into two terms, obviously two semester exam. First semesters they basically covered business principles, sports history, sporting principle, ethics. We talked about the Olympics, how it originated, how sports came into power, how different sports came into power. We studied a little bit about sports psychology, not as much as I would have liked, but it was a paper. It was part of a paper. We learned about different administration of sports. So we studied about different sporting organizations. You can International Olympic Committee, AIFF, FIFA, so many other committees. One thing which would stand out is our professor from tennis, because he was a Wimbledon referee. He still goes for Grand Slams. He is still asked for refereeing the Grand Slam tournaments, and his idea was very clear. He taught us a simple thing: how do you organize a tennis tournament? We didn't talk about the associations of tennis. We just talk about how do you organize, say, a ATP 500, ATP, a bigger ATP, a smaller ATP, and it was an interesting thing because the more prize money you have, the better players you can include, and you have to give them, obviously, you can get sponsors with hotels, shy-ups with hotels. All that is interesting, but what do you need? What mindset you need to run a tennis tournament? We studied about that and it was quite fascinating. Second semester we covered more principles of economics, sports finance, sports law. It was different. It was interesting. It could have been better taught to us, but it lacked. Let's say, it just lacked an edge. One class that did stand out was journalism and broadcasting. We had a professor who was the ex-director of Doordarshan, and Doordarshan back in the day was a big powerhouse. He basically knew the in and out of the country, and we spoke so frankly to each other. He spoke so frankly to the class. It was quite nice. It was an eye-opening class, I would say, and it was probably the best class they had to offer.
This is quite interesting because for a lot of people, they talk about once they want to enter the sports field, it's such a diverse field that when you do something like sports management, it's so holistic because it touches different avenues. So he's talked about economics, he's talked about journalism, he's talked about event management and trying to organize an ATP event, which in itself is three very different career professions or career avenues, which is good because you get a little bit of experience. I wanted to ask Sukrit, he mentioned about getting his coaching licenses from AIFF. So how did you go about getting this coaching license, the process and what you had to do in order to get this certification?
So there are a lot of firms that are registered with the local licensing body, which is the IFA, and are registered by the AIFF, and they do these courses. You can either do it from these firms, or you can directly go to the IFA office in Chandni Chowk and register yourself. It takes a little bit more time for them to get back. You have to keep on pestering them. These firms are smoothly run. They have a licensing course every 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, whatever, and you can properly contact them and they tell you a date and you pay the certain amount of fees and you get into that. It's a 6-day course. They look after your fooding, lodging, everything. You have to stay in the camp for 6 days. It's 1 day is divided into 3 days, which is morning is physical activity. We do all the drills, teach kids all the drills, do the drills physically also. The afternoon session is we are studying, noting down what the points a coach should address, what the coach should do. We read about different coaches. We read about different areas of the foot where children could use, and different circumstances where the children can improve their game at a very young age. So a D license course is particularly targeting, say, from 6-year old to say a 12-year-old. So it's divided into that, and your specialization is for that age group. So you're actually getting to know how a child thinks, how a child works, and using that you instill footballing technicalities or drills, and you set up such kind of drills so it's more effective for that kind of an age group. And coming back, there was an evening session where again we used to do drills, we used to organize drills, we used to do different kind of drills, small sided games and stuff, and dinner and then bed. So it was a quite interesting 6 days. We had quite a good time. I was happy enough. I was very lucky enough rather to have a very good friend do a course with me.
Yeah, that's really great that you got this license done. I mean, like as you said, being in Calcutta gave you the luxury to pursue these other things. So I want to touch upon work experiences that you did alongside your course before. What kind of projects were you involved in? Because we want to understand what are the different avenues of work that's available in India for a sports management student. So what kind of internships or projects were you involved in? And also I wanted to ask, the course, did it involve like a project which is, compulsory for the course to validate the degree? If yes, what was the project that you did?
Okay, so there was a compulsory internship you had to do with the course. The college helped you find internships. They sent out your CVs to different firms, sports management firms, sports educational firms, etc. So the time period is January and till mid-Feb. A lot of people were sent to different parts of the country. I was fortunate enough to go to Bangalore in a company called Tenvic. It's mostly a sports educational firm where they have different module of sports. Like it has various it has variety of sports in their agenda, which is like table tennis, football, basketball, cricket. There are a lot of sports, and they hire coaches, specialized coaches, licensed coaches from the association, and they send them into schools. And there's a specific period, a sports period is turned into a 10-week class, and that's how they learn different sports. So a child has an option of choosing 3 sports. It can be any sports which from that geographical area people are interested in. So a survey was carried out. Which sports should they include themselves in? So a lot of people chose basketball, cricket and football. A lot of people chose tennis, basketball, football, depending upon the infrastructure available by the school. So this was a very nice idea in the sense, because a child is getting to play 3 sports, and he can see different sports and choose, say, a particular sport. In India, that's not feasible for a lot of people, and that's what Tenvic was trying to do. Mass involvement of children in different kind of sports by providing professional licensed coaches to train them. Some kind of equipment was also provided by them. So my role as an intern with Tenvic was to carry out a customer satisfaction survey, a CSAT survey, where you go to different schools. 9 of us went to Tenvic for internship. So 9 of us were given different regions. I was given the full Tamil Nadu region where there were 12 schools. I had to go to 12 different districts in 12 different areas in Tamil Nadu. I had a lot of, we made a questionnaire before we took the journey to the south. So what my job was to go do different classes, hand out those questionnaires to kids of 3 to 8, classes 3 to 8. We gave out questionnaires. We explained them what the questionnaire is. We explained them the questions. They answered. They filled in. Then we came back with all those questionnaires. We collected the data. We compiled the data. We put in that where we need to work, where we need to improve, what we are doing wrong. So it's just a review kind of role which we played out. It was nice. It was nice because I got to explore so much of the Tamil Nadu on my own, and it was a different experience because I was reaching places way beyond my bedtime, let's say. And sports management does that to you. There are places you need to be. There are times, places you need to be at a specific time, and which you would not think is a very good time, or midnight or 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. in the morning. And it was fun. You were on your own doing what was required of you, and you were doing stuff related to sports, and I didn't complain. I just went out every morning. I did my work and I came back. And one more thing you asked was if we are given a project to validate our management degree. We had to do a dissertation. It was a separate paper in itself. You had to clear that to get the degree. So you have to make a dissertation to clear the degree. And it was weird in ISWM because it was kind of a group project, which I had never heard of before. A dissertation, that too in a group. So this friend of mine from Hyderabad, Abhijit, we worked on the marketing strategy of the city group in football. So how they have a team in different leagues and how they are, making that model sustainable. It's not just not sustainable, but it is so good that it was quite nice reading about that, researching on that, and making a dissertation on that.
That's really great. I mean, I just want to come back to what you were talking about Tenvic so that I understand correctly. Their role is to act as facilitators to help a group of, let's say, so they tackle the grassroots level, right?
Right.
So to make a group of children understand what sports to pursue. So there is like a course with a given timeline where they are involved in these different activities to help them understand what is the right sport for them.
So, school calendar would include proper 9 months of schooling, excluding the holidays. So, those 9 months were divided into 3 parts, 3 months each. So, one sport was taught to them in those 3 months. Okay. The other was the other 3 months, and the other was the other 3 months. So every child has to go through all these sports in all the 3 months. It's not like, say, A likes just football, so he just play football. So if he likes football, he has to play the other 2 sports and has to clear the eligibility of the other 2 sports also.
Now, is this complementary to whatever education they are doing? So they are enrolled in their schools,
right?
And then alongside they are doing this 9-month course as well, which is
9-month course. Yeah, it's a weekly period. So they just taught the basic. It's categorized as 3 years. So basically, those 3 sports will be played for 3 years for that particular 3 months. So they're learning three different sports for 3 years, but like
3 months.
3 months, 3 months, 3 months. So that's 9 months of say football from classes. Say 3, 4, 5. He's just learning football for 9 months.
Okay, this is 10. I mean, we didn't know about 10 weeks, so this is an interesting.
This is what they call an integrated school program, and they have
quite fascinating. Yeah.
After school program also for children who want to stay back, have transport to stay back, and they can provide them with the coaches and proper training using the facilities of the school.
I think this is a good example of how India is making progress in the sports industry. I mean, tackling sports at a grassroots level, because I think this is something that has been lacking,
and it needs to start from school.
Absolutely,
it has to start from school. And one more eye-opening thing about this is that this is all in a CBSE school, because CBSE has made sports period a compulsory period.
Okay.
And they have to clear that criteria, and they have a separate column, sports, in their report card.
Okay.
And that's how they're learning, they're coming up with new ideas to involve sports with school, which is quite nice to see.
So, what we notice is that you talk about your different projects when it comes to like coaching projects you've done, the coaching certificate that you acquired, as well as you talk about the market research that you've done which is related to your ISWBM degree. Aside from that, your sports management degree involved a lot of different domains: economics, finance, management, law, a lot of these different aspects, journalism as well. So what I want to know is, going forward, what is the thing that most interests you at this stage? Where do you see yourself in a few years? Where do you see yourself working ideally? And maybe what other things also interest you on this side?
So, like Rono said, there are a lot of fields. Now, you obviously have to choose a field and specialize in that further. Take that field, do jobs in those fields. But sadly in India, those jobs are readily not available. You have to do a lot of internships to, say you want to do journalism. You have to write a lot of articles. You have to do a lot of work. You have to do a lot of groundwork, and then probably tie up with, say, a big news company and take it from there. You want to go to events, you have to do events. You have to show your employer that you have done a lot of events. You have done this event, that event, a variety of events, not just in one sport, but as a whole, you have to show them that, yeah, you can do events. So for me personally, I would probably, the best would be to get into events. That was my goal. Events, and get associated with, say, a football team. And hence my coaching license, why I did my coaching license, because it would be easier to get into a football team, work with them, manage them. I won't say this comes under event management, but it's one of the ways you can get into a football club by doing, say, working with, say, Hero I League. You can work with Indian Super League. You can work with ISL Children's League, and probably make your contacts there and then take things forward from there. One more thing, like for personally me, would be getting into, say, a football team and managing them. You obviously have to put in a lot of stuff on your CV to break that barrier and get to that social circle where your name is talked about, and then you can take things from there.
Contacts are very important.
Contacts
in this industry, to survive.
Sports industry, you have to talk to people. You have to know how to talk to people, and you have to keep getting back to them as shamelessly as possible. You have to keep on talking to them.
So, yeah, this is quite interesting when it talks about the interpersonal side of it that's required and the networking that's required in the sports industry. We've had a very interesting conversation with Sukrit. Just before we wrap up, I'd like to ask him, based on your experience, right, what you've gone through, the course that you've done, licensing, the events that you have done, a lot of things that have taught you so much. For our listeners, someone who is wanting to enter this field and wanting to pursue a career in sports, is there something in particular based on your experience, some advice that you'd like to give them which could be helpful to them when they start their journey?
So don't make a mistake like me. Clear out what you're thinking, what you're trying to get into. If you want to do sports management, do it, no problem. But you need to focus on one direction you want to go in. You want to go to sports administration, specialize in that. Do internships just related to those. Find your own internships. Don't rely on the university or the college to give you those kind of internships. Secondly would be, when work comes to you, do it. Like, say a company wants you to do a different kind of work, tell them that don't wait for your own work. Get into that sector, get into that, and then work towards what line you want to go into. Don't wait for the next big thing because that might not come. So get a job, start working, and then you can slowly talk to people, make connections, then take it from there.
Yes,
Start
is important.
That a lot of people say, I don't have my in. So you have your in, but at a different direction. Get that. Some of us are not lucky to get what we want to do in our professional life. Do that, and then take. It's never late to just stop and go into the direction you want to pursue.
Absolutely. I think with that, we've come to the end of the episode. Thanks a lot, Sukrit. We learned a lot from you. And we wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Rano. Thank you, Arjun.
So guys, that's our episode for today. Thanks a lot for listening. At Think Sports, we're dedicated to helping aspirants enter into sports-based careers. If you want to know more, you could head over to our website at www.thinksports.co.in. Also, follow us on all our social media accounts. Links will be in the description below. And feel free to subscribe to our podcast for similar content. We hope to see you next time.